All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zill. It's great to have you all here again. You'll be hearing us a week delayed, but we actually have not had that much time pass between recording. And so I don't have really anything to remark on. I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, K-Libra. How are you doing, K-Libra?
Doing all right. I just spent a sizable session of playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on Steam, and I have a very special relationship with that game. God damn it.
What would you say is special about it?
I spent a lot of time on it. I really put myself through a lot of work to try and be as good as I could be with a team that is not competitively viable, but I beat a lot of competitively viable teams at arcades where I had to spend many quarters, many dollars, lots of money, and you win or you don't play. And it was like fucking personal for me at points. But yeah, I spent tons of time experimenting at home, taking that shit out to the streets, and doing what I could. And for a while, I was very, very good. And then I got tired of people's bullshit, and I just decided, nah, I've done enough. And now I'm back here because somebody decided to buy this re-release for me.
Ah, so you've been roped back in.
It's free, and also a good friend of mine who is trying to play the game, I was watching him play on stream, and I'm like, no, you could be doing these things, and you could be doing so much more, just some basic shit, let me teach you.
Well, obviously, I'm sure you are a wonderful teacher on that front, and one of the ways that you are continuing to be able to teach is through our patrons. So, obviously, teaching through our Patreon, we get to teach all our patrons all the wonderful secrets of the behind-the-scenes within the Discord, and, get to listen to wonderful lectures like this. I mean, clearly we are offering the pinnacle of education on this podcast.
Yeah, if you want to hear tips that you could actually get about Marvel vs. Capcom 2, come to the Patreon, and I will actually give you a few tricks. No, I'm not going to play like Justin Wong, and I don't think everybody should. I think that's a problem. I think people need to actually explore the fucking game, that actually have some fun. I don't like the culture around that game either, but that's another podcast, wouldn't it be? Like, fuck.
That would be another podcast. But we're on this one, and as you probably have inferred, Libra, there is no guest this week because it's the time that I repay the favor and give you a second look as an interviewee as well.
Okay, this was slightly expected, and I don't know if I should consider it payback or not. But I hope it's not in that spirit, because
no, it's not. I mean, it was slightly expected, but I also didn't tell you until 15 minutes before recording. So
yeah, works for me.
I tried to play it close to my chest and all that.
You did, because we were supposed to be doing something else, and you said, I like this idea, we'll do that. I'm like, oh, okay, and now we're doing this.
Yeah, so
misdirected me.
Yeah, I did. A sneaky Lombax can do subversions.
Everything that's happened to me over the last 24 hours.
Yes, so that you could
executed by you and your insane mind.
So we could play Sonic Adventures 2 on the GameCube. But yeah, it's funny. I found a bunch of stuff that I think we were originally supposed to go through when you were first supposed to come on the podcast. That didn't really go the way that anyone was expecting. And I'd like to kind of get through those, but I guess to start, I would like you to introduce yourself.
I go by K-Libra online. If anybody's seen my transformation stuff, that's usually what you're going to see it under, and that's where I guess the most people have become aware of me. I have been into this transformation stuff for an extremely long time. I think ever since I was like 5 or 6 years old, I saw something, and it stuck with me forever. After a while, I had to come to terms with my liking of it, how it affected me, and eventually getting through a lot of artistic angst and doubt, I decided to draw it, share it, and holy shit, it took me to another country.
Yeah. Would you say that, I mean, I know you've never really been able to pinpoint what the media was that kind of sparked your interest, but would you say there's been any, medias that were formative that came close to that, at least, besides maybe Parasite Eve?
I really really think of Species a lot, because for a while, well, actually there was Species, and I think there was another movie called Doppelganger, but maybe I watched that later on. It's kind of a blur now as to when. But I think of Species because I saw that shit when I was like 11 years old, and I was like, oh, it has the cool morphing thing that I like to see. Never mind all the sex and the fact that the entire plot was based around sex and this lady turning into a monster. The more time she had sex with men, that went no shit. That went completely over my head. I'm just like, ooh, she's a monster. Yeah. Okay, look, as a kid, I was completely oblivious to what the fuck, how do I put it? I had no concept of sex or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So, like for instance, my mother had told me at some point, well into adulthood, I forgot exactly why it came up, but she told me how, when I was really young, my mom took me and my sister to a topless beach, where of course they were both not wearing any tops, and I don't remember that at all. I don't remember that, and so you would think that, oh my god, boobies and this and that, and you're a little boy, and oh, it's weird, but no, I don't remember any of that. But without getting too much farther into that tangent, I think Species was really the thing that like stuck out to me, because I saw it when I was really young, and I thought the effects were like really fucking cool. I realized that after a little while there was something about it that I wasn't supposed to be watching, mostly because I think people were being killed, and I remember seeing what was like nudity, even though again I didn't understand, I didn't fucking get it. But yeah. I'm like, oh, she's naked and she's killing people. This isn't for kids, but I think it's cool, and I'm watching it, and so. Like, it's funny because even like a year or two later at like a babysitter's, I think it was like 12 or something. I saw it when really young. So, yeah, she put it on, and she had other kids younger than me. And I don't know why she found it appropriate to watch that movie. And I told her, I said, hey, I don't know if like we're all supposed to be watching this, right? And she was just like, it's fine. Like, okay. Sure. Forever. Oh, I'll watch the movie again. Yeah.
That's wild. Would you say there were... Because I know like we've talked before and in other episodes about, Parasite Eve and its effect as well. And I know that we've talked a lot about like video games and movies, but I'm curious, was there any sort of like books or literature that like you specifically sought out when you were starting to realize you were into transformation in any way, or was that not really an avenue that you explored much?
I think I kind of explored it haphazardly, but if there was something obvious about it, I would check it out. So yes, I was one of the people that checked out Animorphs, and I thought it was really cool, and I watched the show, and it's funny how I didn't really consider that formative, even though, like, duh, but yeah, it was part of it. I guess I wanted feature length film style stuff. I wanted to find really good stuff, and Animorphs I thought was cool, but it wasn't there, and I could tell. As much as I enjoyed the whole gimmick, and as much as I thought the books were cool because I read a few of them. I read like maybe 5 volumes or something as a kid. I didn't find it easy to get a hold of because Scholastic, and I was afraid to ask my mom for money and things like that. If you're one of those people who were able to just like buy each and every book and read most or all of them, well, lucky you. But that wasn't me. But it stuck with me anyway. And even though I did not really seek it out, again, if I noticed something interesting and it happened to have it in it, then I would definitely go for it. Like Blood and Chocolate, which got a very stupid movie, and then my partner Katana read it, and when she reminded me of what exactly happens in the story, I'm like, oh, this is kind of like a really fucking abusive relationship. And the story kind of sucks anyway, and it's kind of dumb, and oh well. I didn't know any better. I was just looking forward to a werewolf, although it did have one good scene in it.
We do love that one good scene.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to something you said, though. You said, like, you were looking for a lot of this content, and, like, Animorphs was good, but it wasn't quite, like, there. What would you say were, like, the hallmarks of something that would then, like, get to that point, in your opinion?
Oh. Actually, wait. I I don't know why I forgot. See, this is where I know where my priorities are. I did watch The Fly when I was even younger than that.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so from The Fly leading into Species, I was thinking, this is the really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I'm watching, The Fly was probably the thing that made me feel like I needed to find the really good stuff, because the effects were incredible, they were incredibly detailed, and they were just something that I just pour over and really take in. Like, what's happening there? What's that? What's that supposed to be? Is that a sign of this or that? And me, of course, not really knowing anything, it was just even better. Because how was I supposed to identify, like, the parts of a fly or some shit like that, you know?
Yeah.
When I was that young, I'm not looking into bugs or studying that. And, yeah, I think that's, like, the better answer, is, like, a really formative piece of media as well. Because, again, it was just... It's it's like when you watch Color Out of Space and you jump back, and I leaned in and I'm like, this is very interesting. Go on. It's good. Don't worry.
Oh God. But I guess that my question still remains though, like, what was it that would then like make a piece of media stand out as being like, okay, this is it for me. Like, this is the thing that I've been looking for. Were there like any like common themes between those ones that were really like hitting it for you?
I think it was very purely like a visual thing. So if there was distortions that could be appreciated, that had a lot of loving detail and stuff like that, then that's what I wanted to see, because I wanted to see how people would do it. And it was just like the most amazing effect, and I really wanted to see those details. That's what would make me think, oh yes, that movie. So I keep listing like the very short list of movies that stuck out for me, and why, like, I mentioned Animorphs, but I was like, I know it's a TV show. You know what I mean? And the themes are fine, but yeah, the whole thematic thing came about later, because I had other tastes in media. Although, like, I don't know, I'm glad that other things that I watched, because tons of media, like tons of cartoons and stuff, was like, oh, there's TF everywhere. But there were like really cool monsters and stuff, and in Batman the Animated Series. Oh,
Yeah.
That's where you could put some themes in there that mingle and make it interesting in a whole different way.
I guess then if I had to speculate maybe on this, and you can check me on if you think it's correct or not, to some degree it feels like when a media really was like hitting, there had to be at least some element of body horror in it. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, there's just something about it that works for me. I don't fully understand why. I could tell you now the kind of things that it sparks in me and why, but like at a really fundamental level, I don't know. I don't know why it didn't scare me. I don't know why it didn't repulse me. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out.
No, I think that's fair. I guess then, like, as that's kind of like fed into your artwork, broadly speaking, when it comes to like the pieces that you create for yourself, would you say that you try to imbue some of that into each one of them, or when you're approaching them, are you trying to take a different angle?
I try to put that stuff in there. If I want to do a different angle, it's because I'm feeling adventurous, because I felt like it was really difficult to do that stuff. And if I'm just kind of playing with something, I don't know, more whimsical, like, oh, I'm not really concerned about the anatomy of where the bones are supposed to be if you're turning into something that doesn't have legs. So, like, oh, just merge the legs together. It could look nice. Or, I don't know, just, yeah, when I usually try to stick to analogous anatomy. Sounds like a pedantic term, but it's just, what equals this? What would equal that? And making that look cool midway or something.
No, I think that makes sense. One of the things that Past Us had highlighted that we didn't really get to, and I did want to talk a lot more about, was this kind of idea of losing oneself in a change and finding it either empowering or existentially scary. I know that you probably have some thoughts on that, but I guess maybe to start us off, how would you define losing yourself in a change?
I think that would have to do with letting your emotions and instincts, anything that's reactive, reflexive, the stuff that's wired into us to make us do things without even thinking, letting that stuff just completely dominate you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is like a way of like, I think that's the way I look at losing oneself, and especially in transformation, because with the werewolf, lots of people know the werewolf. You turn into the werewolf, you kill a bunch of people. Oh, what comes over the werewolf? Their instincts, their need to feed, their predators, blah blah blah. Like, well, yeah, but also I don't really need to think about tearing people to shreds with my teeth or claws or anything like that. I just think about what it's like to have been really angry growing up and just losing my temper and then regretting it,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like the idea of losing myself completely to those emotions because I have a lot of regrets around it.
It's funny, you preempted something I was going to ask, and that was going to be, in terms of emotional stuff. I mean, you and I both are emotional people, I think, at our cores. And when it comes to these kinds of like emotional transformations, I wonder if there is both a push and a pull towards it based on kind of your experiences growing up.
Yeah, I'm a very stubborn person, which is, yeah, I know it can be an asset, but it really has gotten in the way more often than not. And knowing when to assert myself, that willfulness, is its own journey that I'm still on. Although, when it comes to the push and pull, there is always the desire somewhere in there to just let go of something completely, either let go or buy into, just take all of something. And that is a thing that I feel transformation also offers. So, hey, given to this pleasure or this feeling or this unique satisfaction, stuff like that, and like each time I feel like I wouldn't ever want that to be the thing that I just stay lost in. I suppose it's kind of like it's like drugs and drinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, well, I guess for people who don't understand, drugs and drinking, if you haven't noticed, you may have a friend or have known people who insist that they need to get drunk at a party. Like, oh, I can't wait to get drunk. I can't wait to get plastered. I can't wait to get high. I can't wait to get whatever. Can't wait to be intoxicated, whatever the fuck. And I feel like growing up, I think that, yeah, that's fun. But then I hear the stories of people who end up not remembering what they did, and I'm wondering, that's not fun. I want to make memories and experiences. I want to think back to anything I did or anything, anywhere I was or anything I felt, and I want to be able to reflect on it and be like, yeah, that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Either I could learn from it, or better yet, like, oh, that was fucking awesome. And so I always found it like a lost cause to just not be aware of yourself. And that's why, like, I feel like it's a great way to change is a great way to take you all the way to an extreme. And that's kind of why I like the idea of like of tying orgasm to final changes, because then you can like calm down and reflect on it and be like, wow, cool.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yeah. That's an interesting analogy, though. I guess then, if I can extend the metaphor you've kind of used here, it's obviously clear that then when transformation is being used kind of as more of that like metaphor towards like intoxication, especially when you then have that sort of memory loss, those aren't transformations that ever really have interested you, are they?
No, I always found it really tragic, and also it always. I mentioned in the previous episode. Well, there's a lock on it. Why hasn't anybody tried to open it? Same thing was, if they turn into a werewolf, what if they just are themselves? Why do they have to always turn into murderous killing machines? I thought it was boring how they always had to go at that angle, and I maintain There is very little werewolf media that I can genuinely enjoy. And I don't give a fuck how good the scenes are. I don't give a fuck how good the effects are. The stuff surrounding it is usually not that good. But thankfully, there are some movies that I got to see that are fucking great, and I kind of wish that. No, you know what? They can be the exceptions, because then otherwise it wouldn't be special for me.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that when it comes to then those sorts of changes where it's not so much an intoxication, but it's like an indulgent of a specific emotion, are there any specific emotions that come to mind that you're still not interested in when it comes to a transformation? Because, like, obviously we've talked about, the pleasure orgasm type analogy, but some changes can make you angry, some changes could be very exhilarating, some could make you sad. Are there any emotions from like that kind of spectrum that you wouldn't want linked to a transformation?
I don't really think so, not off the top of my head. Maybe somebody could list something and then suddenly I'll say, oh yeah, fuck that. But generally speaking, that's one of the fun things about it. I think you can use it to highlight what people are feeling. I generally, whenever I make something, no matter how it looks, and boy have I gotten an array of comments that lean more in one direction because the stuff I make is largely considered body horror. It's supposed to be like a harrowing but ultimately fulfilling experience. And sometimes it's really not meant to be that way, but I want to picture it that way anyway. It's like, oh wow, that looks like it kind of hurts, but not in my mind when I'm making it. That's like I'm trying to express it through other things, but movies and images and other stuff teach us, oh yeah, it also means this, or is likely something bad.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, no, it's a hard line to walk, and especially with how some people can be in response to art pieces, it can generate a lot of emotions when you see feedback like that. So I fucking get it.
It can. It's that's why I'm frustrated that I have to still use the term body horror, because nothing quite fits it yet. I haven't found the right term yet. One day, maybe.
I mean, I guess like flesh crafting isn't really the right term in terms of like the artistic style, but it is something I think that goes hand in hand with a lot of your artwork too.
It's that term I like to use for the actual like concept of hands-on pushing and pulling and manipulating the flesh, and it being a very intimate experience.
Yeah. No, I think I understand where that's coming. I understand where that's coming from. I just also think, like, in particular with your stuff, there's a particular attention paid to how the flesh actually changes, for lack of a better term. And I know that it's not quite like, again, it doesn't really fit nicely into that term, but I almost wonder if there's like elements of that even when there's not the physical, like, tactile sort of interactions.
Well, yeah, okay, so the premise that I tried to clarify a minute ago was an excuse to just have more of that. Like, do you want tactile? Do you want something that involves a lot of force and feeling? Have somebody put their hands on you and make it happen. That is what that is for me. Like, yes, it'll be there by default. Now for more.
Yeah.
Even if in like the presentational sense, to have hands do things to you is going to tick different boxes than watching somebody just like, oh, that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the topics that kind of was alluded to in this original outline but didn't really get explored that I did want to kind of get into was your kind of experiences with the TF fandom over the years, because I feel like we've kind of talked about it in broad tones a lot of the time, but I don't think we've ever really gotten into some of the specifics. And I know, like, in our past conversation last week, we talked a lot about my experience with like that like photo manipulation community, and kind of in contrast how you didn't really have that experience. So I guess to set the table, I was curious to hear a little bit as to like what were your first interactions like within the fandom, and how did that sort of affect your art put from the get-go?
So I will admit that at first it seemed pretty positive. I figured, hey, I can draw stuff, and even though I'm not that good, I know people want more. So I'll surely get some people to like my stuff, and they did. And a few more than I expected, but I was like, oh wow, attention. This is new and interesting and cool. And okay. So then I did commissions, and people were interested. I was like, oh, wow, okay. And it was generally positive, and it was encouraging, and it made me want to keep doing more, and it helped me get through a lot of insecurity, which is getting hung up on the idea that you shouldn't draw something if you're not ready to do it. You should be studying this or studying that, when really a big strength if you want to start doing this stuff, but you feel like, oh no, I have to learn all these different anatomies, is you use your observational skills, and that is going to do a lot of heavy lifting without you feeling like you have to be an expert at one or many things that aren't human beings, which are, yes, already difficult to draw for most people.
Yeah. So at the beginning, you'd say it was largely kind of positive for the most part.
Yeah, it was positive, and it was encouraging, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And oh, other people who like the stuff that I do, maybe I'll get to start talking to some of them someday. Oh my god.
Something tells me that may or may not have been a turning point.
What do you mean?
The talking to people part.
Holy shit, man. It was nice to do streams, and my god, when I started streaming, I had insane streams that would last for like 8 hours, 12 hours. I've done 24 hours. I have...
Jesus.
Hey, when you are trying not to think about the hurricane that flooded you out of your living space, and you could use the money because your job isn't paying you enough and you're trying to get an apartment, yeah, you're gonna do that constantly.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. That is just to layer that because I was doing that stuff, I was getting exposed to a lot of people, and people were coming to talk to me. And so I was like, oh, here's my opportunity. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And then I started to notice the dysfunction in some people, which I was just kind of like, you know what, fine, fuck it. I mean, even back then, no, the internet's fucking weird. It's weird. It's like, oh, it's strangers. I come from a place and from a mother who was like, don't trust anybody, look out for yourself, right? Pretty much, like, that evolved into I scrutinize everybody. So is it really a big deal to be like let down or put off by people even after talking to them for a little while? It's not crazy. But I started to notice patterns.
What kind of patterns?
Started to notice that dysfunction was like a pretty regular thing, and that it would really get in the way of actually making connections with people. And this was before I had like better concepts of what the fuck like anxiety was for people. Because I've heard of anxiety, but like, for instance, people who I would talk to and then they wouldn't respond for a long time, or I would have to be the one to keep up a conversation, or not even just the anxiety, but just generally like people who have not been able to like handle their own traumas socially or otherwise, and that spills over onto me. And I also ended up having these weird interactions where I'm like, why the fuck are you acting this way? You know, it would just get me into these arguments and discussions and just being ghosted. And I started to think for a while, like, holy shit, how come I'm having so much friction with so many people? Like, I know I'm not supposed to be friends with everybody,
Right.
But why am I having so many problems with so many people? That's weird. And that's stuff that I started to notice.
When we talk about some of those like dysfunctions, I know obviously you've mentioned kind of a few of them, but was there any sort of like critical moment where you were like, these are the specific things that I need to look out for from now on, and this kind of signals potential red flags?
I'm gonna get a very obvious one out of the way. The cold call hello. You know, that shit most of the time, because early on, and it's funny how this tapers off. Maybe with numbers it kind of decreases because then people start to get shy once your number is bigger. But
Yeah.
requests for RPing have like just they don't exist anymore, which I think is very funny. You know, but there were a lot of those. And I was just kind of like, who are you? Why do I want to do this with you? Don't you know this is my kink? Why do I want to do this with you? I don't know you. And also, I have no hook as to why should I even be attracted to you? What if I'm not into you at all? And, well, duh. Like, stuff like that. Those are like red flags. And also just people who I guess... Damn, I'm trying to like put it succinctly, because it felt like just a smattering of things that would loop around to the same results, but it came in a bunch of different ways. Looking back on it, I think it had to do with a lot of people who really thought about this stuff like really more intensely. That was it. For me, I started to notice that if people wanted to be changed, it's like there's something about me that will not connect with them, and I'm going to hit a wall. And I don't understand what that wall is, and I try to look past it, and I try to work around it, but there's just something there, and then I end up losing something, or I end up wanting to leave because fuck you, stuff happens as well.
So specifically, like when people's interest was only in them being changed, either by you or just in general, that was kind of the roadblock?
Yeah, like I started to notice that people... it came off as like either a form of self-loathing or yearning, you know, because it would be like, oh, if only, I wish, every day I wish. And I'm like, I wish many different things, though. I mean, that would probably be cool, and I do want this to be real. But also, where are you? Where's the person?
Because it sounds like it was very much like the pining for the unattainable. That was really alienating you.
Yeah, and that made it feel like I wasn't really talking to people. I was just talking to people who just kind of wanted to bounce this idea back and forth. But even then, I didn't feel like it was a very open discussion. I found it very disappointing that there wasn't enough exchanging of ideas in general. And that's another thing that I was hoping to find. And most people just, I don't know, didn't fucking really talk about it in a way that I found creatively satisfying either. And this is me also speaking to other artists or people who wanted to make art.
Yeah.
It was shockingly low for something that for a concept that's just fucking infinitely imaginative, that you could tie to anything for any reason in any capacity. Yeah, it's just crazy to me.
When would you say was the first time then that you actually interacted with someone who you actually clicked with on that level, like in terms of actually engaging with the things you were interested in and, you know, treating you like a person and vice versa?
Oh, man. I'm trying to think. Yeah, there were like a few artists that I ended up talking to, and yeah, it was like sharing some fun stuff, and there was even like a bit of smut made and everything like that for fun. But yeah, that wasn't too far into it. Maybe like about a year or something. It felt like things happened really, really fast. And I ended up talking to some people. Yeah, I could like it was like maybe like 3 or 4, and they would kind of come and go, and they weren't always available. But I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, like I remember. I don't know if you were looking for me to name names, but I was just trying to be...
Well, it's up to you. I'm not going to push you to name names, but I was just curious, like, what those experiences were like. Because, again, it sounded like at least after that initial sort of honeymoon phase, it was like slogging through a lot of dead end conversations, or it felt like that, and before you actually found people that you could connect with.
Yeah, like some of them I don't really talk to anymore anyway, but I remember them fondly, and some of them have come back around recently, and some are like, I don't know, I can't imagine ever talking to them again. I think that, yeah, I think it took about like a year or something like that. And then I was noticing that there were some people who I would talk to about more than just this stuff that I draw. Or also I wouldn't have to chase them down, you know. But it was still kind of rocky because there was also so many people, especially since I streamed way more. There were the people that would talk to me on and off stream, then the people that would only talk to me on stream, but I'd be getting to know them from there. And holy shit, like after like maybe a couple of years, there was like a friend group that, that started, and it was on Skype. And then like Discord came around, and Skype was starting to suck, so it's like, let's try this Discord thing. And that was, that was the beginning of a bunch of other things. But even then, I felt like within that space that had been made from a Discord, early Discord, those are the people that I felt that I could very comfortably be myself around. I felt like, I don't know, I always felt like I was chasing people away, or like they didn't want to approach me. And again, I kept thinking it was me, and no, it's not always me.
So then I gotta ask, with all of these sorts of interactions, and with many of them being with kind of deadheads, for lack of a better term, what convinced you to continue to keep being open to those sorts of new connections? Because I know obviously like you still have lots of conversations, be it on this podcast, be it in your server, which is like, a public server that people can come in and join at any point and kind of chat with you. What convinces you to keep still being that level of open?
That every single time I've found somebody who I can really connect with just from this stuff, has been, even if for a little while, a good experience. It's been something that has motivated me to try new things and just think about different things. It expands my world. Sheltering yourself is not good, and I never really wanted to do that. And I fancied myself being the kind of person that could make at least one friend wherever I was.
Right.
I mean, and sometimes end up making friends with several people. It always depends, of course, but yeah, I mean, I just don't really see a reason to stop. Everybody knows something that I don't. Everybody brings something different that I can't imagine. And I think it's also great because I keep doing that, networks have formed with me. And that feels great. It feels great to be connected to people, and it's worth the work. I think that's really it. Just through the trial and error, there are successes. There's actually a lot of successes. They vary in quality. They vary in duration, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I very much agree there. I guess I don't think it's as uncommon as some people may think that folks can feel sort of disconnected within the transformation space and feel like they're not really finding those kinds of connections. I guess if you had advice for those people in terms of trying to still forge ahead and make those connections, what advice would that be?
If there's anybody that you want to talk to, I think, okay, first of all, here's the thing that I do that gets me shockingly far. If you say something like "What's up?" or "How's it going?", don't accept the answer of "good" or "I'm fine" or anything like that. Be like, just assert like, "No, really, I want to know, like, how are you? What's been new lately in your life?" And they'll be like, "Oh, okay," and then they'll have something to talk to. I mean, talk to them about them, and hopefully they will do that with you. And I think that's a good sign. people want to be the receptive one, the good one that everybody likes because they're such good listeners and they're so nice. But yeah, it does matter when people will ask you, unprompted, how are you doing today? Or what's been new with you? Look for that. And also, because of how weird this kind of space can be, generally with like furries or whatever, big popular super artists, I know that some of them have ridiculous numbers that probably have them like harshly filter everybody, which, fucking internet fame. People are going to handle it how they got to handle it. But approach them like human beings. Try not to be like dumb and starstruck. It does make you look kind of silly or dumb or weird, or at worst, you look like a fucking moron because you're like, oh, I don't know, and you're like, tenting, you're doing a little tenting your fingers thing, and it's like, you don't need to do that. They are people. I have been through my phase of just like, oh wow, why do you want to talk to me? And thankfully I wasn't too weird about it, but I had to be told like, hey, I'm just me. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, it's remember that they're all just people just kind of like struggling. Oh, and the last thing, no matter how much you admire somebody for what they put out, temper your expectations. Always temper your expectations, because they are people, and artists are like any other group of people, no matter how good or bad their art is. To you, of course it is subjective.
I guess one of the things I also wanted to kind of get into was the kind of K-suit concept and the vibe that it kind of brings, because again, it's something you've kind of gotten the opportunity to touch on in a few different ways, but I don't think we've ever really gotten super deep into it.
Nope.
And I guess I wanted to start off by saying how the concept came to you, or like asking that.
Oh, so there was this very horny sequence of this lady turning into a cow woman, right? And she had this skin tight bodysuit on, and it looked like she just activated the changes herself and then was just kind of like, ooh, come hither. But the suit looked like it was absolutely made for that body of hers, because it didn't shred, it didn't like stretch or deform or get weird. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if it was just a suit that did that? Because obviously it looked like it was made for that. It's too convenient. Like, what do you mean there's like a little thing to have the udder fall out like pleasantly and just be part of the whole thing? And so the bodysuit catalyst, it was born from that. And then I wanted to build on it because, okay, I like pleasure and I like control, and just that coalesced into being something that I thought people could just put on and have fun, have fun without the risk. And I don't know, that just kind of builds on the stuff I was talking about earlier, doesn't it? With not wanting to lose yourself and also wanting to indulge, because wouldn't it be fucking great if you could do all that, like drinking, drugs, whatever, with little to no consequences? And that was it. It's like, here is a way to fucking do some wild shit, and there's a bunch of stuff to keep you okay and to experience it over and over again.
How do you think well, actually, let me just ask this question. I know it's a bit silly, but I feel the need to ask. When it comes to K-suits, I presume that the K also stands for knuckles.
Yeah, you can say that, but the K, as this is going to be really fucking dumb. Yes, because the K in K-Libra is just Knuckles Libra, and I just liked enough the way that it looks, and I don't hate hearing it when people refer to me as it, so the name works. But the letter K is something that I've also used as like just a general thing that I like to use for names. And so I'm like, that name starts with a K, so this will start with a K, so you'll know that this guy made this thing. And it doesn't really mean Knuckles. It technically means K-Libra, which is redundant as fuck. But you're like, surely the guy who has the K as the first letter of this also made this. Blah.
Right. So is there a K-suit that will turn you into Knuckles?
Yeah, you can make one. No, you asked.
No, I did. I just because I know you have certain feelings about Sonic transformation, so that's why I asked the question.
Well, I answer honestly.
I appreciate the honesty.
If I was in, I have like a general idea for a headcanon as to how this shit all works and how it gets researched,
Yeah.
And the limitations and maybe trying to push those limitations and what that means and everything like that. And one of the things was like, oh, can you turn into like a fantasy animal? Like, yeah, fuck it, you could turn into like some dragons and shit like that. Sure.
Yeah.
Why not? I should think like, oh, well, dragons aren't real, or this thing, or Digimon aren't real. I had somebody put on a K-suit become a Digimon. I never posted that one. I just forgot to. So yeah, why not Knuckles, a Sonic character?
Yeah. Interesting. Well, then the corollary to that is, I mean, you have like thoughts on like what the limits are and how to push it and what the backstory is. I'm curious to hear about those things, and then also my kind of follow-up question is going to relate to how often you feel like you want to just present everything within the image and everything else is extraneous, and how that might kind of contrast. But let's start like with the first question. I want to
I'd like you to elaborate. Sorry, I'd like you to clarify on the last question because I don't understand what you're asking for. But
okay, well,
but
we'll do the first one first.
So like the setting, like what I'm thinking about with
that.
Yeah,
what's the setting? What's the kind of like lore? How does it work? And what are the limitations?
Okay, I will give you the meta lore, which has to do with my interaction with people while I was making the whole concept. I made the concept, and the small amount of people that became aware of it, a lot of them really popped off at the idea and really, really liked it. And I'm just like, nice. I didn't expect the gimmick that I would make would actually catch that kind of interest, but nice, cool. And I started to build up the things it can and cannot do because people kept trying to break it.
Ah, I see.
So when people were trying to break it, they would say, what would happen if this? What would happen if that? Because, and this is another thing that drives me fucking crazy and is part of the brain rot that makes me just fucking disengage most of the time, is when they say, oh yes, but what if you get stuck? Or what if it changes you into something else completely? Or what if it makes you do this? Or what if it makes you do that? And I just kept thinking of reasonable answers to all those things to shoot them down on purpose. Right. And I'm just like, this is pretty good research. Keep asking me these questions as a good thought experiment so I can just keep shooting this shit down and make the idea my own, because it can already turn you into so many things. You just keep wanting to fuck with my idea. Go the fuck away. Why play with the thing I'm giving you? It's a cool toy, and you're trying to jailbreak it already. Holy shit, dude! I could have been like a total asshole and just been like, yeah, this is only for very special people, or this is only ordained for certain kinds of biometric. No, I really want this idea to be the sort of thing that would be accessible to most people. I say that deliberately, but I think most people should be able to have that kind of experience, so they should be able to have it. Money shouldn't really be an issue. That being said, you keep asking me stupid questions, and I will shoot them down. I'll engineer a countermeasure for that. Now that's the meta lore, and that made me think, what kind of a place would be manufacturing these things? This technology is like borderline fucking magical and makes very little sense. So you'd have to work backwards and just kind of like make shit up. And I was thinking, oh man, testing the suit. Oh yeah, that book that I read a long time ago. There's a book called Resident Evil Underworld. They did novelize the Resident Evil games and they were very fucking good. And specifically, Underworld had to do with an Umbrella Laboratory that had these 4 fucking quadrants that worked like completely different biomes in order to test different bioweapons and monsters. And I was like, shit, okay, so what if I had like a big ass fucking laboratory with a variety of environments to just kind of like test what it's like to be this creature. Is it like accurate? Can you really like hold up under these conditions or those conditions? And also just kind of safely test stuff that is supposed to make sure nobody gets hurt. You know,
Right.
Controlled spaces. And I think of like this. I think of this place as something that's like way off and fucking somewhere, and I think of these really elaborate spaces. Like, oh yeah, one of the things that I like to think about is like the big bodies of water that would have to exist in there,
Yeah.
because there's all kinds of things that are huge, and I would want to push the limits.
Of course.
So yeah, stuff like that is what I think of in terms of like lore or whatever. And also, I more loosely like to think that what people do is that they end up submitting an order with certain, with whatever, and you get it. You get things customized to you, and I like that. I always feel like if something can be made more your own, that's great. So it's always just like, yeah, submit an order to us, and we'll be doing this for you. And let us know if you need anything else. Like maybe the suit can be compatible with several other forms, and you can program that in to like try something new. Or you've been asking about the inanimate stuff. Well, the suit can't really do inanimate stuff. So we're trying things to see where we can go with that.
Right.
Fun shit. And yeah, and just experimenting, and generally just for like exploratory purposes. And just to like, and this is part of it, because people might ask this question, and I'm circumventing it now. People who have power fantasies, it's not for you. It's not for like taking over the world or fighting or becoming your mega god beast and just taking over everything and being a tyrant. That shit is made deliberately not for fighting. It is for play. That is what it is for.
So I can't become a super mega awesome celestial dragon that's 1,000 years old and has 16 cocks?
No, you can't do that, and also
Damn.
you wouldn't get the powers of it anyway.
All right.
Also,
then
how am I
I'll cancel my order.
How am I supposed to like I don't know, man. After a while, this like what are we supposed to be doing? What kind of energy source am I going to be drawing from? I think the suit's not going to be able to manifest that. Although we do question where exactly I get the resources for what I do. I don't know.
Well, then the one question I do have is, because obviously one of the things was like people were trying to like poke holes and find loopholes. You did say at the start that there maybe were some limitations, and maybe one of them was that it couldn't do inanimate stuff. Were there any other limitations you did actually like build in?
Oh, I wanted to make sure nobody could fuck animals.
Ah.
I really didn't like that. I had somebody who asked me a long time ago, wanted to have something where ultimately they would mate with like a wild version of the thing they turned into, and I'm like, no, we're not doing that. I don't care if you're the thing. We're not doing that. So in order to kind of like curb it, at least the idea of it, it makes whatever you turn into, and yes, you can use it for sexy fun stuff, but you're sterile.
Ah, gotcha.
You're not getting away with the whole like, oh, I'm pregnant, I'm stuck like this, or like, yes, I have implanted my seed in the wild, and now it would be my spawn, and it would be out there whenever I hear the birds sing. Like, no, fuck off! You're not doing that shit. Get the fuck out of here. I can't stop everything, but stop some things.
No, I mean, I think that's a pretty reasonable approach, honestly. I forgot what the second part of my question was.
All I'm saying is, yeah, I will do things to make sure that you don't get to do something stupid. Hell, don't make me have to figure out what I would have to do to people who break my rules.
Mm-hmm.
I like it, but generally without being like whatever fucking shit that I'm trying to portray myself as. I just want people to have some fucking fun, and I want it to be okay. That's really it.
Yeah.
And not take advantage of it like a dick.
No, that makes sense. I remembered the second part of my question. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, good. Go, please.
So when I initially pitched this, one of the things I kind of alluded to, and correct me if you feel this is inaccurate, but I think over the years there's been a lot of people who have made comments that are less than helpful related to, well, what happens after, or, is this cropped, or what about this part, or will this be a sequence, or, where can I see part 15 of this?
Why are you trying to make me angry like this? What are you...
Well, no, hold on. I'm setting it up for a reason. So I think you've had all of those kinds of comments, and one of the common refrains has kind of been, everything that you need to know is in the piece in front of you. So my question in relation to the K-suits is, obviously this is a concept that actually has a lot of external information that's not necessarily present in the images or what have you. What would you say was kind of so like drawing to that idea that you actually created this like whole lore and backstory in a way that you don't usually for some of the other like pieces and stuff that you've done?
Because it was kind of an organic thing, and that came out of just interacting with people that I wanted to get from the creative community for a long time, which was input and questions, inquiry. It makes me think, Yeah. If I want a particular scene of something and I want to capture that particular scene, that's great. But I'm really fixated on trying to make that thing look just so.
Right.
But a concept, if you're asking me about a concept, I will start thinking about things, especially if I'm making it. You got questions? You're trying to figure something out? Well, I like to answer sometimes. And so with something like this, which I thought would be fun because, let's face it, I thought the concept was pretty hot because I like bodysuits and stuff like that. Yeah. So, that's me adding more to something that I like. And so I didn't want to let the concept go. And because I didn't want to let it go and other people liked it, it just gave me excuses to just keep making these thought experiments, and I would just kind of daydream about them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. If you had one, besides maybe like your kind of Sona Felray form, what would be the number one species that you would want to use it for?
Oh, shit. I'm actually not really sure. See, this is the problem with me because I don't think too much in terms of wanting to feel a different body so much.
Yeah.
So those is usually a really hard question. I just kind of look around my room and I don't think I can really decide. I think that would be the fun of it. If I had one, I'd program as many things as I could, and maybe I'll find something. The opportunity alone is something that I would fucking love. Oh, maybe you just did you ever want to be a cow? Well, no, but might as well try it.
Yeah.
Is that particularly interesting? Not to me, it isn't. But I get to try it with no strings attached, pretty much. Sure,
Yeah.
Or I don't know. It just could be anything. You want to try being a bird for a little while? Oh, it'll be fucking wild. Figuring out moving through the air like that sounds kind of scary. Might as well try it if I can get away with it once. And I don't know, maybe I could find that. I think I would want the opportunity of almost anything. I don't know. Maybe I'll have an answer for that in the coming years. I know that, and I know it's good that you mentioned the thing I made for myself, because that's the thing I'm most interested in.
Yeah.
I put a bunch of qualities together that I like. I'm like, yeah, I want that. Of course I want that. I think it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's cool too. So I feel like it was a very important thing to kind of talk about. And I guess related to that, have there been any other kind of ideas over the years that you've kind of played with, and maybe they didn't become as big a thing as the K-suits in terms of their reach and their reaction, but ideas that you still think about and would consider making into more of a world building type exercise?
The things that I did mention the inanimate stuff, and that is an offshoot from the K-suit things. So, it's sort of different and sort of not, because I didn't want to do the bodysuit thing, but I did think that if I already had this concept of a laboratory setting with all these extreme ridiculous things that I could have access to, oh yeah, the experiments can get wild. Let's turn people into things and vehicles and and make that interesting. And that's the sort of thing that I would want to explore more. And haven't really done. I've done a little bit of it, very little bit, but I haven't followed up with it in a long time. But anytime I have done it, there was the implication of it being in like a laboratory or research or a controlled setting.
Yeah.
And that is the sort of thing that didn't really take off. Like a few people that were regularly interested in it when I was doing it.
No, I think that makes sense. Would you say there is a particular vehicle that you hope to do a TF of in the future?
You know what? I don't know. I've done the ones that I'm interested in, but I haven't really been inspired to do one that I really want to pour myself into and just take have it take as long as it takes. It's funny because I like to see other people do things with like cars, for instance, because those are fucking crazy. But like, I think I'd want to do like a really good motorcycle one, just like a really sleek motorcycle type thing. And I'm not sure exactly why that clicks with me. I'm not sure why any of that stuff clicks with me, other than I like it because it's really different, and I appreciate it when the differences between like the human and the end results are very drastically different. I like
the contrast.
Yeah, the contrast and like what the body has to do to meet that. And so I guess that's a big part of it. But then also, I think I just have a general thing for like certain contours and appearances and stuff. So, bikes kind of have that. Cars are just kind of weird, and I just think to myself, and I have thought experiments in my head. I'm like, how should this work? How would this look interesting, but also make sense? And that's like a fun creative exercise as well. So, even though I have done those, I haven't been sparked to do one for me, by me.
No, that makes sense. So when it comes to like the vehicle stuff, I know we've talked in the past about identity death, and now that's not really your thing. When it comes to someone becoming a vehicle, how do you envision their sort of mental state shifts or like adjusts to being in that sort of a form?
Of course, it'll depend on the kind of vehicle, but I think that it would really just be trying to tie, like, how do I put it? I suppose the difference between, like, a human and a machine is knowing that a machine with several functions will have those functions available to the user most of the time. But what if all that and you are the machine? So you can get a sense of, all right, let's go with the car thing. You would be in the mindset of like, okay, I have to be able to take in my space. Let's say this car has like sensors so that you can just detect stuff around you. Do I want to make it so that it's more typical and it's like frontal peripheral vision? Or do I want to get like really fucking wacky and do like, 360 degree type shit? You'd have to have something that could handle that. And I'd like to think that the technology that supports that would be able to kind of like supplement the consciousness to be able to deal with that. But you'd still have to become accustomed to it. And going further, like I said, there are functions that would be available to the user because the machine has it. Well, the machine could be able to do it too, which is why something simple like somebody can if there's a door that can be opened, you can open and close it. You can lock. You can, you can raise and lower windows. You could maybe sense your own speedometer, shit like that.
Yeah.
I don't think you could individually like pop a piston and set off like that kind of like really fucking insanely nuanced action, because that's crazy and just it would be too stupid for me. I think I would just be exploring that sort of thing where anything that a person could do or use, you also get to just be aware of and utilize. It's like It's like, for instance, being able to still speak because you got
Yeah,
speakers, because you got a radio,
exactly.
shit like that.
I do like that concept a lot. So, I mean, I fucking second that. One of the final topics that I kind of had, again, from that sort of original outline that I thought was kind of interesting was we had written down self-image and self-acceptance. And I know that that is always, I think, a struggle for a lot of different people. And oftentimes it will get tied into shit like, like, oh, I went on this journey about, my sexuality or my gender or identity or what have you. But I know when it comes to like that term of like the self identity or the self image and like self acceptance, that has been very much a different sort of kind of axis for you. So I guess to start off, I'd be curious to hear a little bit as to what your self image has been and how you've kind of worked over the years to accept yourself.
First of all, if you have people that actually care about you telling you good things, they mean it. And
Mm-hmm.
that was something to really help me get to a better place with myself and my self-image.
Mm-hmm.
Because this isn't something that I think is said, I don't know, anywhere. If it's said it, I don't know if it's not said enough, because I don't really think I've heard it anywhere else, which is, if you are being told by people that care about you and really know you, and you're being given this positive thing, and you're telling them, oh no, you're wrong about that, or no, you're just making that up, don't do that. You're just kind of throwing it in their face, and you're telling them that they don't know better, and that it's insulting and it's hurtful on a completely different level, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I say that because that was a huge fucking problem of mine. It was just hearing these positive things about myself and always thinking they were wrong, or somehow they're just not seeing past it, or they're just saying that to make me feel better. It was like a combination of those, or one of those, and that kept happening all the time. And what does that make you do? It makes you hate yourself. Made me hate me a lot. That kind of self-loathing spills over, and it really just affects people around you. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You are not being clever or selfless by keeping the pain to yourself. People will notice, and when they do, they'll want to help you. And when you don't want to help yourself, that breaks things up. And you can test that all you want, but there are a lot of bad outcomes. So that's one thing. If you want to tie this to transformation, I believe that this whole thing comes down to what I wanted to add. What did I want to bring that I thought was missing? And I felt like there was obviously a lot of stuff that I didn't get to see, that wasn't being made, and I wanted to express that. And I felt like I wanted to add some kind of value to this, to things that maybe I felt deserved some representation, no matter how petty it was. And it kind of helped me feel a bit like I matter more in my life, which is a double-edged sword, because of course when number do not go up, it feels really, really bad. Okay. No like it. And that would make me feel, yeah, and that would make me feel completely worthless, and it would make me feel like I wasted my time, and I'm like, oh, I'll never be like these other people. But I cannot ignore that when certain people have said really positive things like, oh, I love this, or you doing this made me make this, or thanks to you, X and Y, and that's really fucking cool. And if you take those things to heart, that makes you look at yourself in a better way. Because look, no matter how you're presenting yourself online, especially if you got like a Sona or a creature or something that is supposed to be your avatar, all right?
Yeah.
It's those comments, everything is going to be going to you. people, if you're throwing your comments and your whatever and things you have to say, they're going to people. They're not going to some character. Even then, some people draw the character sad, or just like, ha ha ha, humanize them, give them. But the reason I'm saying all that stuff is because, yeah, I wanted to be important somehow. I wanted to do something that I felt was missing, and I guess I keep trying to do that. To what effect? I don't know. It's in little ways. In some ways I can brag about some things, and in others I'm just like, well, I wish people would fucking listen to me on this. But of course, that's like a lot of people, right? Yeah, all this stuff has weighed heavily on my self-worth and has gone back and forth. And I think that through a lot of work away from this has been the real key. Because although I like to involve myself in this in different ways now, and I like to think with a better perspective and a better head, I think that's something that also helps my self-worth is I know that I am a part of something. And being a part of something means that it can be hard sometimes for long stretches, but there's a reason you cared in the first place. And so you can keep on going with that and, I don't know, evolving or trying new things with it. And that also helped my self-image. I could say other basic things like, I've tried to make sure I was at least a little bit fit, or, if there was a new way I could take care of myself, to include that into my routine. But I think for the people who are in this space and they think, oh, how does it relate to that? Yeah, really, I think the bottom line is I wanted to express myself in a very particular way, and I wanted to be as honest as possible. And through all the shit that I've been through as a result, it's been worth it. But I had to be honest with myself and other people about it.
Would you say then that because you've listened to other people and you've done a lot of this kind of external work away from transformation, do you feel at least more of a sense of the things that you're doing in this space matter now?
A little bit. When I realize how long I've been a thing of any kind,
mm-hmm.
and that some people that I've been aware of for a while will say, "Oh, I've known your stuff for a long time and I love it," and I'm like, "Damn, that's the effect, huh?" I may not be doing that across the entire fandom or whatever, but that's happening somewhere. And that's the kind of stuff that made me try what I'm doing. And that's cool when you think about that perspective in the long term. And there's another thing. Realize that if you want to contribute to a group of people, it's not about the short game. It's not about oh, in a few months I want to get 100 more followers, or I want to break this number record. No, it's the long game. If this is if you have this kind of care about community or people or something like that, you'll notice it. You'll notice your impact. Sometimes it's not a good one, but hopefully it is, and I hope I've done more good.
I want to build on that point as well, because I think that one of the things that I have learned from you in the course of kind of knowing you is your strength of opinion, and how sometimes people will take that as either a good thing or a bad thing. And one of the things that I think about in particular is the strength of your opinion on kind of the fitness front. We've kind of talked about it before, in very broad strokes here, but I think a lot of what I have been doing personally, over the past, it's been almost 5 months now, 5 months now. A lot of that is directly as a result of feeling a sense of inspiration to do better from you. So I guess my question to you is, when it comes to impacts that you have had on other people, how do you kind of process changing the trajectories of people's lives?
As much... the really corny thing is I always have... Well, I have for a very long time just wanted to be like this big hero to a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
But self-loathing gets in the way of that. Those two things cannot be true. No matter how much of an interesting story it can make for your favorite characters, you know, you gotta know how to treat yourself and respect yourself so that you can try to be that kind of person for others. And also accept that, people aren't even gonna like you sometimes. Even if you are doing a thing that like reasonable people ought to think is fine. Not even great, just fine.
Yeah.
It's acceptable. I guess I don't think about that too much, but maybe it's also just considering that you want to leave something that lasts. I don't think I'm ever going to have like a kid or raise a child in any capacity, you know. But man, ideas, those kind of things can reverberate. Hopefully can leave something behind that really just makes cool and better things for people in that little butterfly effect sort of way. You know? I think it's easy to devalue your own choices when you don't see the immediate results, when you're not saving the fucking world or just somebody you really care about. Those things add up. And if I'm trying to grapple with the idea of like changing these people's lives, I guess it's like accepting, I'm building on the victories and learning and moving on from the defeats, as dramatic and trite as that may sound, because that's what it is. It feels like a fight sometimes.
What motivates you to keep fighting then?
I haven't found a reason to stop.
Damn, that's deep.
Why stop? I can't answer that question. I mean, when I've been depressed, I would think, oh, I'm not good enough for this or that or whatever, and then of course you'll stop doing things or wanting to stop doing things, but once you come out of it, it's like, no, wait, I want to go do this again. Well, didn't you say you never want to do this again? Well, I guess I didn't mean that, did I? Something else was talking for me. Something that isn't a favorable part of me. It's doing something else, or something that's trying to protect me, but doing it in a really terrible way, and that's not really what I believe in the end. So I haven't found a reason to stop. I mean, there's like people to help, but also just like, you know, just good times to be had. I think sharing good times is just as vital as like, oh no, help me, save my sanity or my life or some fucking wild shit. Like, yeah, that's important. Except, you know, when things aren't in crisis mode, isn't it good to just spread some goodness where you can with people you hope deserve it? Why should I stop?
I think it is.
Tell me why I should stop, and I'll consider it.
I don't have a reason for that, that's for sure. So, no, I think that's also just like a framing of the question that I think we don't hear a lot, to be frank. So, I fucking dig it.
Cool.
One last question in this arena,
okay,
and then we'll go back to some of the audience questions. Obviously, you know, one of the impacts that you have had in terms of like engendering like self-acceptance to a degree, I think, has been being a part of the podcast. And so I guess when it comes to that sort of angle, what do you hope your lasting impact is from the podcast?
I hope that a few things I say could maybe be the wedge to getting people to adjust something or accept something, or I don't know, find like a little bit of strength or peace to just, you know, spark all those little euphemisms to get them to do a thing that they otherwise wouldn't do, or maybe not even stop doing it, but to consider stop doing a thing. Mm-hmm. The consideration alone is very strong, because I've complained before of people's incuriousness and not wanting to even entertain a certain thought, but it's kind of like when you know of somebody who has like really shitty beliefs, right? Let's say they got like bad politics or bad social views or whatever, right? And it's very easy to go in on somebody and be like, oh, hey, you think this is whatever? Well, it's wrong that you feel that way, right? And, well, whatever, they can just ignore you, right? They're used to it. But there is a tiny nugget to when they approach you and they start with you and say, do you think this is okay? And then it's like, now you want me to defend myself, as if maybe you have a doubt somewhere in there. And I use that example for oneself where, like, okay, if you really dislike yourself that much, why don't you... Why do you keep being you? Certainly there's something about you, and then you're not going to change it. Okay, do you think you can't? Can you really not do it? My favorite example to give is how when I was growing up, people made fun of me for my name because it's a very easy nickname to make out of my full name. And it was so annoying, and it made me feel really bad when I was a kid. And then I grew up and I just became exasperated. But in my worst moments where I really hated the thing that I was stuck with, that as far as I knew I could never change, which, yeah, you can change it, but fuck off, you know what I mean? I kept thinking, well, if I had another name, what would I pick? What sounds right to me? And nothing sounded right. To this day, nothing sounds right. And yeah. I know that some people, they want to change their name for whatever reason. And that's, yeah, but that's because they want to do something, and it's closer to like them being honest with themselves. And I had to be honest with myself. If there was nothing else that I could think of, then why should I hate this aspect of me? Why should I dislike myself? Why should I wish I wasn't me when I can't imagine what else I would be? You know? Mm-hmm. Why can't I find out how good this version of me can be? So that is the kind of thing that I think about when it comes to accepting yourself. I am not I am not weird enough to be queer for society's taste, and I am like, you know, I'm pretty straight, and I say pretty because like I consider it, and then I'm just like, nah, nothing's happening in my brain for that. But like, I still have to go through a lot to accept who I am.
Yeah.
And I think that experience is universal. I don't care what demographic you're in, you know. Please don't give me the edge cases. Don't give me the, oh, what about this? And, oh, you're not that. Like, come on, connect with me here. As I'm telling you that if you're looking for reasons to despise yourself, you can find plenty. And they're very convincing. And there isn't really a need to. And also, if you feel genuinely bad about things that you know are wrong, if you can try to repair it or mend it, do so.
Yeah.
And if you cannot, move on and avoid those behaviors. But that's you. You're always going to be stuck with you. No matter where you go, there you are. I don't care if... I really don't care if you say you're meant to be this or that, or you were never meant to be. Like, okay, well, work with you, who is you, because that is what you got. Yeah. And try to come to terms with that. I think the sooner that you do, the more you're actually going to get done. and actually learn about yourself, discovering yourself is fucking crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot that you can learn in
Yeah.
that process.
Yeah, so you don't and okay, well, I guess I'll top it off with this because I think I'll convolute it if I add any more, but how do you really know you're worth hating if you don't even fucking get yourself yet? I bet you don't. I bet you really, really don't. Especially since if you're stuck in your own head and maybe you're stuck with a lot of pain or loneliness or anything like that, if that's the only thing you know about yourself, you don't know the other parts. You know that part. You are not a good judge at telling yourself why you suck so much because you only know like a few parts. It doesn't matter how intimate you are with those. So really explore yourself before you make a proper judgment. And even then, if you had the guts to do that, then do something about it because by then you've proven that you can. That was a very long spiel.
I think that checks off the bingo card of you saying something very deep and inspiring. So
I hope so.
Yeah.
It only is that if other people think so. So I hope so.
That's true. Well, I did have 2 audience questions that I wanted to make sure we got to. Or actually, sorry, there's 3. I've miscounted, my mistake.
Okay.
The first one is from Leaf Wine, and it's a Halloween-themed question. And so the question is, trapped in a horror comedy, how would you use your favorite TF tropes to turn back into yourselves before you turn into featureless mannequins and identity death TM sets in?
Why the fuck are you giving these specific questions?
I'm gonna answer first. Unfortunately, I'm gonna subvert your question. I am gonna do none of those things because why the fuck wouldn't I want to become an identity death mannequin? Like, come on, look at me. Like, who do you think you're asking this question to?
Oh, so you're not doing identity death. You're not doing IDSUP anymore. You're just doing identity death. You're gonna drop your whole thing.
I'm using it as an IDSUP thing because this question doesn't listen. This question doesn't say it has to be identity death the way they think it is, so it's going to be the way that I want it to be. So yes, you're asking me what am I going to do to stop the thing that I really, really want. I'm going to do fuck all. I'm going to be like, yes, come hit me, this terrible change. Oh no, whatever shall I do? Ha ha ha, play the laugh track. You're like, I'm going to fucking embrace that shit. Are you kidding?
Okay, so this has what I like to call unhealthy questions, specifically because it's a very particular scenario where this is going to be the results, and you have to use your favorite tropes. Under what circumstances? Am I fighting someone? Am I cursed? Am I trapped in a dungeon? I don't fucking know. So I guess I'd have to just use my tropes in the way that, like, I don't know, man. What can
you're given a lot of agency, so sorry, but go ahead.
I know, but it's like so much that I'm just kind of like trying to settle on something. If I had to use tropes, I guess I would use the like, oh my god, fine. If I could just pick anything, I might as well just go any level of Super Saiyan, go beyond 7,000 times and defeat my nemesis. Why the fuck not? And I don't care if you think and I don't care if you think the hair color change is stupid. It counts because it has to count in that universe. And I can win, so fuck it. Because, again, like, I don't know, it's so fucking broad. My favorite tropes, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but it's one I'm familiar with, and it's bullshit, and I can make it work.
I think that's an acceptable answer, frankly, so you'll just go Super Saiyan, and then the mannequin can't sit in. I don't see any fucking issues with this logic.
Or if you want to get more like ooh ah and really get tingled, for those that don't know, Saiyans were able to transform into a giant monkey that was like an extra powerful version of themselves.
Yeah.
And they get to be themselves at the same time. And also, like, if they knew things like energy attacks, they can still do them. And like one of the most famous characters, Vegeta, because I don't know if anybody actually has watched Dragon Ball Z at the beginning, but he was able to make his own goddamn moonlight, and that was really clever, and that made a very cool fight. And so it's just like, yeah, I'll work with the whole Saiyan gimmick and just win.
I've never heard the moonlight thing before.
I'll talk about it later. I'll tell you about it later.
Okay. The next question we have is from Chozo FS, and I gotta say, this is one of the hardest questions I have ever been asked. It's going to be very difficult for me to give you an answer. But here's the question. The question is, what is your all-time favorite YouTube video?
Son of a
one
motherfucking bitch.
You have to pick one.
Hold on. I'm actually going to open my favorites so I can see if I could kickstart my memory.
Oh, you favorite videos on YouTube?
It's not like just...
I raw dog that shit like a real he-they.
Oh, man. Favorite YouTube video? What the fuck? Where the hell are my favorites, damn it?
Well, while you're looking for it, I will provide an answer. So I want to make... I'm slightly cheating, but bear with me. I do have a favorite YouTube video. I also have a favorite video that surpasses it, but it has never been posted on YouTube. So you're going to get both answers. So my favorite YouTube video of all time is an incredible masterpiece, completely underrated. It only has 132,000 views. It was posted 11 years ago on July 12th, 2013. I have a reminder in my phone every July 12th to say happy birthday to this video. This video comes to us from Shinigami Eater. Incredible mind. We will never be able to comprehend the depths of how they have, done things. And this video is called Sasha's Fanfic. So, to give you the very abridged summary of the video, it is a fanfic written by a character named Sasha from Attack on Titan. And it is fanfic about her fellow castmates. And it is written in the style of a story you would read on Wattpad, written by a 15-year-old with no spell check. And it is voice acted to perfection and also has visual, very poorly drawn crayon drawings to illustrate what is going on in the story. I quote this video on a daily basis. It has so thoroughly wormed its way into my manner of speaking that there are so many different memes that I just mentioned from this video that some I have even forgotten came from, and then I'll watch it again and I'll be like, oh my god, I say that all the time and that came from this video. So, gotta say, that is my absolute favorite YouTube video. The other one I want to submit, which, again, it was never posted to YouTube, but it was on Dailymotion. I believe it still is. It's a video called To Make Waffles, and it is incredible surrealist sort of story about a man who has a candle for a hand and is throwing paper planes off of his deck, and one lands at the foot of a woman who goes to investigate and ask him, why do you have a candle for a hand? And the story just kind of devolves from there. And does it make any sense? No, but I love that video to fucking bits. There is nothing that will ever top that from a comedy view in my perspective. Maybe it's because I saw that video when I was 12, but god damn it, it's the funniest fucking shit I've ever seen in my goddamn life. So that's my all-time favorite video.
Those sound incredible, and I'm very interested in experiencing those.
Good.
Man, I'm still having trouble. I don't think I have a favorite one, because I feel like I'm really trying here. I'm fucking trying here.
I know.
I gain no favor here in just being like, oh, I don't have one. But holy shit, I'm just looking through like my old favorites, and I'm just remembering like, oh yeah, what about when, like, for instance, when you said like the things that have infected your vernacular,
yes.
One of them is from God, those fucking videos called Dragon Ball P. and like and lots of people know that those were like really fucking popular. But
yeah,
the thing that stuck with me was like was the term Demicky. They were like, in the last episode, Virginia was acting Demicky, and I will say that to my friends in the context of somebody is causing trouble and fucking around. So when I say someone's acting to Mickey, my friends know what I'm talking about because they know that stupid video. Another one of my favorites is also you picked two, so
I did pick two, but I had an important caveat. One of them never got posted to YouTube, but anyway.
But you still picked two. Anyway,
I did pick two.
This is also this one always brings a smile to my face, and it's a 13-second video under the YouTube account called Pinky Oats, and it's simply called Lizard Shitpost. And it's a bearded dragon on a hardwood floor that every time it tries to run really fast and gains like almost no traction. And every time it's running, it would blare out through the fire and flames. So it's like and it's just 13 seconds, and that always makes me smile. That's like one of my favorite things ever. Oh, and okay, so I guess since you picked two, I'll stick to two because again, they are videos that always put a smile on my face, and I could make the list longer, but I'll stick to the two that I feel resonate most readily with me now. It's the lizard shitpost and the animation from, people probably know this name by now too, Psychic Pebbles, Get Out of My Car.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Excellent choices. The last question we have is from Other Side, and the question is, what part of the process in creating artwork do you enjoy the most, be it for drawing, photo manipulation, writing, etc.?
The sketching part. I like the very messy beginning. I just dread making it look good because I still struggle with being patient with myself and believing that I can make it look good. But I like it when I get a really nice sketch out that I feel has energy and feeling, and my brain fills in the blanks, and that feels really good. So, I like the sketching, I like the sketch phase, starting it up.
I think my favorite is applying lighting. I think the reason why is it was something I didn't feel like I was very good at before, but I've also found, especially as I've like developed as an artist, it's something that can immediately make a piece go from like just pretty okay to like actually quite good, at least in the context of photo manipulations. And so it is a very also immediate kind of change that you can visualize. So it's like, oh, I don't even have to do that much, and I can make it look that much better. So it's like not a lot in, and I feel like I get a lot out. So I'm like, yeah. So
it works for me as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, there's an entire job for 3D artists in games to just light places, and it's a huge fucking deal, and it matters so much. So it makes sense to me.
Fucking agreed. Awesome. Well, that was all the questions that I kind of had. You know, I think it was important to also have this episode, not just because we did one for me last week, but I've said this before, and I think a lot of people don't necessarily recognize it, but this show would not still be here without you. Genuinely, when I got to the end of like season 2 and the interludes, I was already burning out, to be frank. And as you know, many people don't necessarily realize, but this is a lot of work to do on a weekly basis when we're running the seasons, and doing it as one person would have meant that this did not get past like season 3. Like, there's just no fucking way. But more importantly than just ensuring that it continues on, I've always found that you have a really important and valuable perspective, and something that I've always valued in kind of conversations is the ability to have disagreements and also like debate things. And we come at this trope from very different perspectives, and I think that enhances not only the conversation but also the final output. And you know, I see a lot of my kind of like tendencies in you as well, and I think that that has always made me like feel very comfortable talking about these kinds of things with you. But more importantly, you know, I think that you have kind of a wealth of experience that you generously share with people, and it also annoys me when people don't value that, you know? Like, I read all the comments, and, you know, whenever we get stuff that's like tone policing, a lot of it falls on, you know, stuff that Libra's saying when I'm saying something very similar often. And that shit pisses me off. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is, as someone who has grappled at times with how what I say is being received, it bothers me when people don't give you your due, and I think that you deserve a lot of credit and a lot of appreciation. And fuck it, again, like, I wouldn't want to do this show with anyone else that wasn't you. And every kind of episode and season that we kind of progress through, it only kind of strengthens that conviction and resolve in my mind. And I frankly feel very #blessed to have you along on the fucking ride. So I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, same. It's another thing I can say I did and been a part of that's is affecting people. Yeah, I wish this was heard by more, and that blah blah blah, and it was bigger. Lots of us wish this stuff, but it's really cool to know that at least indirectly, I'm helping to, I don't know, get some good things across to people, because I know people give you those compliments and tell you, oh yeah, you know, this made them feel better and stuff like that, and you know, I'm glad that I can help do that. You know, I would like it, but I don't really need to be the one to inspire people. But, you know, being part of the cause, that's great too. And that's because you gave me a chance. Thank you.
Anytime, man. Well, I guess that's all we have for today. But as always, you know, keep an open mind. Don't tone police people. And stay hydrated and... stay TFy, I guess, and we'll see you back here again for another episode that will fall within Libra season, the best season of the year.
Yep. And by the way, Libra season applies to both of us. Just so you're all very fucking clear on that. It's about us, not just me. Also, if you're gonna tone police, just admit that you want to fight me because you think I sound stupid. Otherwise, go fuck yourself. Okay, you're not better than me. You're not better than me. You don't sound smarter. Fuck off. Goodbye. See you next week.
Bye.